All right, today's video is going to cover an Accu Slide inspection form. The Accu Slide has been around since the early 90s with BAL, and you may have some issues, whether this be at a dealer or even a customer's unit that came in at a dealer, and we want you to do an inspection on the slide. Ensure that the installation process was done properly. It's going to ask you a variety of questions, and we're just letting you know we're going to go through each one today so you know exactly what we're asking you to look for. The first one on this list is going to be retract the room and validate that there's even seal compression around the perimeter of the room on the interior. So we'll go ahead, we'll run that slide all the way out. And we'll walk around the room at this point and just ensure that the room is sealing in that fully extended position and that we're not having any gaps or voids. The reveal is even on both sides. We'll check the other side as well. Run our hand on that, ensure that we have that even reveal, and we do. The next is going to be validating that the interior standoff brackets are within that 1/8 of an inch to up to 1/4 of an inch spaced away from the back of the fascia board. We will have to run the room back in to verify. Now with that room all the way in, we can go ahead and take a look at our interior standoff brackets and ensure that those brackets are mounted evenly away from the back of the fascia board. They should be 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and that should be the case on all 4 brackets. If it's 1/8 of an inch, it should be 1/8 of an inch at all 4 corners away from the back of the fascia. If one bracket was further back than the other 3, that could cause the room to stop short of sealing in the fully extended position. The other thing it's going to ask us to next is validate that the top and bottom of those brackets, those interior standoffs, are aligned vertically on both sides. All we're looking for here is that the bracket is straight up and down and that the top's not kicked back with the bottom touching or the bottom back with the top touching. Inspect all 4 standoff brackets on the interior to ensure that. Next, we're going to pull back on the wipe seal on either side of the room, and we're going to validate that there is even reveal. In an ideal situation, you should have 5/8 inch gap from the glass to the extrusion on both sides of the box from the top to the bottom. We're just wanting to make sure that that's even all the way down on both sides of the box. If it's not, that may indicate that there's not a square issue, or potentially the box isn't centered in the opening, or the box was built oversized. Verify that the jam clamp is secured into the channel of the jam on the left and right hand side of the room. With this particular setup, we don't have jam clamp. We have extrusion. This is our G4 or Accu Slide. So the OEM ends up purchasing this H column. We're just going to want to make sure that that's screwed down nice and tight and that it's not pulling away from the wall or flexing while in operation. If this were an Accu Slide hybrid or an ABS version, you would have a jam clamp that's screwed to the wall just like this here, but it would be locked in like tongue and groove flooring to the extrusion, the vertical upright or the jam. So ensure that it's locked in from top to bottom if it does have jam clamp on both sides of the room. Something else to look for is if it is an above floor slide and it's our ABS picture frame, you will also have a clamp on the bottom as well, running the full length of the extrusion. In this scenario, it's G4, and for our hybrid, there is a required cleat that should be there, and it should run the full length of the opening from corner to corner to where it's supporting that flat sill material, to where as the room comes in on the retract, it's not flexing down, allowing water that's getting wiped off the box to pool in the corner and come to the interior of the coach. That can also be, instead of a wood cleat, it can be aluminum or steel piece of angle running the full length as well. Verify that your cable adjustment label is installed on the wall near the slide. In this scenario, usually above the box, you may end up having to look down it, or with a camera, get up on the ladder, or You may have to even potentially, if you can't gain access over the top of the box, you may have to remove that front fascia in order to inspect anything further from this point. But you should have a sticker that's up against the wall, similar to the slide that we have next to us across the show coach here. There'll be a label such as this one. We do have some new styles that are coming, but it'll still be a similar label to this. And it'll be either to the wall or potentially to the back side of the fascia. And once you remove the header board, it's on the back side of your header board. Sometimes they do put that in the shipping paperwork as well. If they have an issue with the adhesive on the sticker not adhering to the wall, they may add a staple to it or add some extra adhesive, or they'll say forget it and they'll just put it in the shipping paperwork. All right, next you're gonna have verify that the anti-vibration blocks are installed and each of the 1/4 inch chain nuts are securely against the adjustment bracket. We'll go to this slide over here to kind of showcase that. The 1/4 20 nut that they're asking for is this 1/4 inch 1/4 20 jam nut. It should be locked down tight to your in and out labeled brackets on both sides of the motor. If you grab it and you spin it freely like that there, that's incorrect. That's a deviation. That should be jammed tight up against that bracket. All that's ensuring is that the in and the out, when they pass one another, they're unable to turn and collide with one another, which could cause even further damage or issues to the mechanism. The next thing you're looking for are these anti-vibration foam blocks. These blocks conform to the shape of the nut, and what their purpose is every stud, so 4 on each side of the motor, should have that anti-vibration foam block, and it should be wedged all the way back to the adjustment bracket, the labeled bracket, in or out. That's going to stop the nut from rattling loose during transit due to road vibration. If those aren't on there, your outs, as you cycle the room, they'll continue to get tighter and your ins will loosen up on you. Eventually that nut rattles loose and now you're unable to pull a corner of your room in due to the cable pulling out of the adjustment bracket. So verify that those are all on there. If those are not on there and you don't have any of these, you can, just like the Accu Slide, get you 8 of the 1/4 20 free running nuts, set those on the end of the stud and tighten them up and jam them tight to the adjustment 3/8 nut. Do that to all 8 cables up top. That'll work just fine. That's actually probably better than the anti-vibration block. So just a little note there for you guys. It says verify cable tension with the room extended and that all adjustment brackets are vertical and not tilting. We're going to check the inside and outside brackets. We've already checked the insides to verify that those weren't tilting when they were straight up and down. But while you're operating the slide out, you could be inspecting, ensuring that these brackets aren't pulling away from the box, indicating a self-tapping screw was used on the interior, should be 10 gauge wood screw, or that the interior tubes, the aluminum tubes, aren't, they don't have the wood backer stuffed in them. Now the bracket's pulling away, causing the bracket to pull away from the box as the fasteners give away. So we'll go ahead and we'll operate that slide all the way out, and then we can go ahead and check for proper tension on those outside cables. We'll go to the outside of the coach. We can grab a hold of our cable, push down a 1/2 inch, push up a 1/2 inch. It can be more than that as long as the cable's not sagged or drooping on you. Pull on it, as long as it goes back straight, that's sufficient. There's nothing wrong with that. That does have a little bit more than a 1/2 inch of play in it, but the cable's not staying sagged on us, so we're fine. Inspect all 4 exterior cables to ensure that they're right at that same area. No more than a 1/4 or no more than a 1/2 inch up and down. That would be too tight if you have less than that 1/2 inch up and down. we would at that point have to loosen up on our in cable adjustments on both sides of the motor if that was the case. Next, you're going to verify that the exterior brackets are mounted up and down properly. You don't have an angle to them, front, top, or bottom kicked in, and that the end bosses, if they have them, are touching the back side of the T-molding. If they don't have these end bosses, they should be spaced evenly at all 4 corners, 1/8 up to a max of 1/4 inch away from the back of the fascia. Also inspect and make sure that each standoff bracket has a rubber grommet. Those rubber grommets are meant to keep that cable in contact and installed into the slot of the exterior standoff brackets. Your interiors have those as well. That rubber grommet is just blocking off that keyhole that stops that ball end from popping out of the bracket. Now we want to validate that the top and bottom exterior standoff brackets are aligned vertically on both sides of the room. Once again, we just covered that as far as the top or the bottom being kicked away from the T-molding. Want to make sure they're mounted straight up and down. Next, we'll go back to the inside of the coach and we'll verify some stuff inside. We can use this slide here on the other side for the next question. We're going to validate that the corner pulley brackets are installed correctly and they're not tilting during operation. What we're looking for here is from the top of the opening to the bottom of the corner pulley, standard is 1 to 1.25 inch spacing from the top of the tube to the bottom of the bracket on both sides. You're also going to want to inspect and ensure that the cables are coming straight out of the mechanism and into the corner pulley, ensuring that these inside cables aren't too far over, cutting into your wipe and extrusion, or these cables are coming out and rubbing your jam clamp. During the operation of the slide at this time on this question, you're going to also want to make sure that the corner pulley bracket itself isn't flexing on the wall. That could be due to poor backer, self-tapping screws used where they're supposed to be using 10 gauge wood screws, non-self-tapping, or indicator that there's maybe backer that's broke loose in the wall or a weld broken in the opening that could be causing some of those issues. It's not uncommon for that corner pulley bracket, the OEM, to contact us and say, instead of the 1 inch or 1.25 inch, we'd like to have 6 inches of spacing. We're going to put a soffit over top of this. We're going to close it off that way versus trying to hide it with a top header fascia board. Or on a bottom mount, it may be mounted in a different area on our double back Accu Slide system, which is typically seen on your bed slides coming out the rear end of a coach, out the back wall. Those are typically, if they're cables, that's a double back system, and that just allows you to get that extra depth of the box in a smaller rough opening length. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to verify that the motor is mounted correctly. Location, orientation, and tilt with wires secured. So from your rough opening, you're going to want to run a tape all the way over to the center of the sprocket. You're going to want to do the same on the other side. We're going to go from the rough opening back over to the center of the sprocket, and within 1/4 inch, that center of that sprocket should be dead center with the opening itself. Make sure that you're inspecting the chain orientation. Chain orientation is key to give you maximum amount of clearance for your in and out brackets to pass over top of your motor on these compact motors. Our older slides, like pre-2010, we ran a different style motor and there was room for these brackets to pass in behind them. Since we started running these compacts, we asked that the motor assembly itself, motor side away from the chains, in this case, sprocket up, motor down, so the assembly 1/4 inch tilt. So you can see that if you're looking at this, we have a 1/4 inch tilt on that motor assembly. Any more than that could cause some noise on the chains trying to run themselves off the sprocket. 1/4 inch will give you that clearance, and whatever side the motor is on from the sprocket or gearbox itself. In this case, it's on the left-hand side. The left-hand set of chains should go on that double sprocket last. If you incorporate both of those, you're going to have plenty of clearance for the ins and outs to pass over top of the motor and not run into the back of it. Verify that your motor is mounted correctly. We've done that. The wires secured properly. We don't want those wires just floating around, hanging up here, kind of like this Trainer mock-up. We've messed with this and we've left the wires exposed. If this rim traveled any further, it could potentially catch the wires. Make sure that they're secured to the wall, coming out of the wall, and then secured to the drum of the motor, usually using a zip tie. Identify your glide surface. Once again, just like our Accu Slide inspection sheet, this one here is a flush floor style, and you can see that by, this is the BAL flush floor pan. This has the compression rollers that are lift assist rollers in the pan in the bottom of it under the slide out, and it has the full length wear bar all the way across. However, flush floors can be, the OEM can use different manufacturers or suppliers, and it may not be ours. It could be Rock Run flush floor pan, or it could be the Keystone Gigi flush floor style. But make sure that if it does have rollers, that we are indicating how many rollers are underneath that slide to ensure that we have enough to support the weight of the box. Verify that your glide surface makes full contact with the slide floor and operates smoothly and is not damaged. Reason for this is, especially pre-2018, the industry was using the single leg support solid core wear bar design. That single leg support was notorious for collapsing and folding over on itself with the weight of the box, especially on larger slide outs, or heavier slides, I should say. When that happens, we may have to introduce a service roller, a series of service rollers underneath the slide to bypass that damaged wear bar altogether, which is just a quicker fix instead of pulling the box, replacing the damaged wear bar, and then putting the box back in, readjusting it, just to end up finding out a couple years later they end up having the same issue. So we bypass it altogether, and we have service rollers available to you. 854-303 and 854-304, depending on the height of the wear bar. And we have access to those on our website, balrvproducts.com. Cycle the room in and out 3 times just to confirm successful operation. At this point, you can go to the outside once you've retracted the room all the way in and ensure that the outside seal is good at all 4 corners, that we don't have any gaps where we could potentially have water infiltration. The other thing we'll check after that, and last but not least, would be the room with it fully extended. The leading angled edge of the room and the floor is resting on the slope of the wear bar to allow full extension. All we're saying is just making sure that we are making full contact. Brackets are making contact at all 4 corners with the room fully extended, and that the wear bar, or on the flush floor design especially, or the solid core wear bar design, isn't stopping us from going all the way out and getting a fully extended or fully retracted seal on our system. Last but not least is water management. There's a lot of areas that you can inspect for sealant after the product's installed. There are some locations around the jams that should be sealed off, and on the outside of the jam and on your header, on your cap seal. All those things can be checked after the product's installed. And I would refer you to balrvproducts.com. Click on the support tab and then the download drop down and search Accu Slide. You can do this for the Accu Slide as well. Our supplier quality guidelines. There is an area in there for seal, and it will highlight all the areas you should check for sealant.